and unmute. And I should be live. I should be audible. I should have captions. I shouldn't be visible because it should still be the starting student screen. But assuming all of those things, I should be going out on the internet talking about D&D and other such fun things. Don't see captions yet. Captions, come on. What are you doing to me? Channels, you're just not turning on OBS. Why are you not turning on OBS? No, you should be able to see captions. Testing captions. 1, 2, 3. There they are. Silly web captioner, what are you doing? All right, so moving right along. Then, last but not least, look, it's me. Hi, how you guys doing out there? Whoop. All right, so if you were, basically, you may or may not have been here last week when we, on a different channel, but still me, basically for charity, for the Extra Life charity, ran through a game that basically a game system known as Toon. It is an old school cartoon role playing system. It is designed for basically the ability to simulate cartoon. And so basically that means the fact that you have characters being able to do wacky things like, pick up doors, move them across the room, or flying, or being flattened by a pile of rocks, and then basically slinking their way out from underneath it, and some other character comes along with an air pump and pumps them back up, and they're okay. It's wacky, it's silly, it's meant to be fast paced. The literal tagline of the system is act then think. It is designed to be a fast-paced system of just enjoyable hijinks. It is perfect for a group of people who are just getting into role playing, because it takes a lot of the pressure off of it. There is no such thing as a mistake. There is no such thing as a wrong move. For people who are new to role playing, it lets them do whatever. There isn't a I want to do this, and then the GM tells you, well, no, sorry, your character can't do that, or the rules don't allow you to do that. You can only take 3 actions and you can only move so far. You can only do so much. Much like the Feng Shui game we played earlier. It's very much designed to be just basically the characters are throwing ideas out there, and in this case, what they call the GM, the animator, has to react to it. I will say from the flip side that while it is a ridiculously easy system to basically to play in, it's definitely harder on the GM, because a lot of times, depending on how you run it, you are literally presenting people a blank slate, and so as a and this is a new even as a veteran GM, that can be daunting. When we run this game, and we often do at Gen Con, there'll be more information about that coming out. Basically, I will be at Gen Con running games, so if you want to see me, I will be there. We'll also be at Origins, but that's beside the point. But when we run this game at Gen Con, I run it with a friend because we are running a 4-hour game of this, and basically from start to finish, we generally trade off and take 2 hours each because it is a mentally exhausting process. Because as the animator, as it's called, you are intended to allow your characters to do whatever and react in as I've talked about before, in the proper improv manner of yes and. You are not basically supposed to shut down your players. You're not supposed to be upset if your players blow up something, take out something. It is a game of reacting to, building off of it, and then turning it around and giving it back to the next player, as it were. A lot of times, there's games like D&D and Pathfinder and Call of Cthulhu, which we've run on here, and things like that. A lot of it is it's goal oriented. Like you have a goal at the end of it that you're trying to reach, and that is the group's focus. It is definitely more of a cooperative effort. It is supposed to be everyone shows up and everyone is bringing their attention to it, but they're all striving to complete whatever the group objective is. Rescue the princess, get to the bottom of the dungeon, investigate find the killer, shut away the cosmic horror, etc., etc. And it is figured or expected, especially in games like Call of Cthulhu and things like that, that if it comes down to it, you are going to sacrifice your fun, as it were, in a sense, so that the group can accomplish the mission. And that may, in Call of Cthulhu, that may be I'm going to read the evil book and cast the evil spell, knowing that likely it's going to drive my character insane, and the character will be done. I mean, face it, a lot of the time in adventures, especially Call of Cthulhu or some of the more urban fantasy ones, the appropriate solution a lot of the times is leave, get out of town, just go, well, that sucks, and get out. If you're doing what is best for your character, you're leaving. And you basically, but you're not, you're there to play the game. And so you are there to encourage the team and get the team to win. So you're going to do whatever it takes to get the team past the goalpost. And that might be making character choices which are maybe less fun. Um, that's not to say as a good GM should be able to take those and encourage you and make them interesting, make your personal sacrifices, blunt the impact and change them into things that build up your character and add to your fun. But a lot of times that's intimidating for new players, especially in terms of, hey, I just came here to basically to have fun. And I realize the fact that if everybody here is going to have fun, I have to have less fun, essentially. But the point of Toon is everyone there is just to have wacky chaos fun. And as the animator, my job is to make sure one time a party member got slowly reincarnated into a silver dragon. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Basically, you did something heroic. Here's I'm assuming that they died honorably in some kind of situation that they then got forced into. Basically, they're like, oh no, I'm going to do this, but they're like, oh okay, this will further your character's path. They probably had basically some connection to their backstory to that, and that will continue it on from that point. But in Toon, the idea and the fact and what the animator is doing is I'm looking at a table full of players, especially at Gen Con, where at Gen Con, this isn't necessarily a group of friends. This is a group of 8 people who have taken a shot on us and have chosen to show up for our game and have paid us actual real money to play this game. They died in the dungeon, but to help this out. She rolled 3 nat 20s in the reincarnation process. Woo! Nice. Um, and so I come to the table and I'm looking at these people, and you're going to have a mix of people who show up to a game. You're going to have a couple of people who know each other. People the rest of the campaign, yeah, I bet. You're going to have the solo person who just showed up, and they're there. They've never played Toon before. Maybe they've never played role playing stuff before, and they're just there to have fun. Maybe sometimes it is they got brought there by a significant other or something like that who's like, no, this is a fun game system. You should show up and play it, and it's not intimidating at all. Um, and then occasionally you'll just have people who either because of timing or because of other personal reasons come to the table and they're just kind of they're kind of done for the weekend. They're not feeling it as much as some of the other players are, or they run at a level 5 or 6, which a lot of the times can be fine. But when you sit down at a table with a group of tens, um, it's on the extroversion scale, you're going to get run over. So if I was playing this in a more traditional, basically, hey, talk, let's basically give and take, I have to deal with the fact that that person is going to get run over by everyone else at the table. But my job as an animator, if it's in a game like Toon, is to make sure that they don't get run over by the game. That I am pulling them in. I am taking the ideas that they give me, whatever it is, basically however small, and turning it into something interesting, making sure that nobody, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good. That nobody feels left out at the end of the game, that nobody feels like none of my ideas went anywhere. I didn't have any impact on the game. I didn't, I was a little quiet. I was a little back, and the one player who was really talkative and really super creative and loud at the table ran everything. All of that to say, that makes my job as an animator tough. And so I like to cheat. I mean, hey, as a GM who has basically runs a bunch of games, I am always in favor of little hacks and tools and tips and tricks that make my life easier. It's the reason why we're talking about LoreLink here, the system that you see on your screen. I don't like having to take notes and have 16 notebooks worth of stuff in order to keep track of all the different games I'm currently running at any given time. I don't like to have to deal with the fact that um, if my players come up with something cool, I have to deal with that. And if I don't remember that and sit down and realize it before every game, that the players are going to feel left out if they come to the table and they're like, oh, he didn't remember the fact that my character had this or that. It's basically, so LoreLink is that tool. LoreLink is the tool for that, in to do the remembering for me. Write it down so I don't have to remember, as is a common saying. It is the idea of the fact that no, it's called a shortcut. Exactly. And so how I do that with Toon is, rather than picking, like, if you actually look at the actual base, they have some base adventures, but they're pretty wide open. They're like, you're on a game show, you're on the moon, and you're trying to get this, you're trying to get this chemical. The problem is the fact that if you're playing in Toon, you're playing with cartoon characters. And if you've watched Warner Brothers, if you've watched any of the basically more, back when cartoon was just a phrase meaning wacky hijinks that were animated because you can't do them in real life, not animated in general. So you're dealing. It is kind of interesting. A cartoon kind of deals with a very limited set, kind of that Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers, Tom and Jerry, that level of kind of non-linear cartoon. It doesn't have a storyline really outside of the episode itself. There is rising and falling action, but it's all within the same episode. And if you watch those, they can definitely start at point A, the acme and slapstick and episodic plot. Exactly. It can start at point A, and then it's going to like 90% of an episode of Bugs Bunny. It's Bugs Bunny dealing with Marvin the Martian. He can, or Elmer Fudd. It can start off with him in his 90% of the time. They'll start off with him in his hole, it's in this rabbit hole, and then from there, Elmer Fudd will show up, and then the adventure will go someplace completely different. You may end up on the moon. You may end up in a castle. You may end up in a dance hall. You may end up in the Wild West. You may end up in, and any of those places are equally likely, and you never stop and really question. Oh yeah, but that's weird. You started out in the woods with a in a rabbit hole. Basically, how did we get here? It's like, no, you kind of expect that. You expect that the plot can go anywhere. And when you're dealing with basically six plus people all bringing their own ideas, your plot can go anywhere. And so how I cheat is I take an idea a friend of mine gave me a while back. A good friend. He's actually occasionally pops into the stream. Wolf Dad Gaming, um, and he basically came up with the idea of the fact that a lot of these old school D&D adventures, and basically by that I mean stuff like this: the old folder system, the blue map in the back of it, handouts and things like that, adventures that they had. And you take one of these, and these are a lot of these were designed for what is known as tournament play, and I'll come back to that in a second. But the short of it is, these are designed to kill players. These are not designed. These are not designed for. These are competitive play, and by competitive I mean you trying to get through it with your group of friends while someone else at a different table tries to get through it with their group of friends. This one in particular was designed for the Dungeons and Dragons tournament at Origins 1. Again, by the way, see us at Origins. I'll just keep repeating that because it's cool and I'm excited to be there. Um, but by most standards, these are yes, the GMs aren't trying to TPK as much as the GMs are letting the dice fall where they are, where they do, where they will. I can speak English in correct grammatical order. I can, really. The GMs will let dice fall where they lay. And because of that, and the way the adventures are designed, they are designed to, if you make a mistake, you will get punished for it. And they then publish these adventures later. And if you come at it from a normal, oh, hey, I went down to the store because my friends and I want to play this D&D thing, so we grabbed an adventure. Tomb of Horrors sounds cool. It's a high level adventure. It's got pre-built characters, so our friends and I can try it out. Like it actually has a page in here for pre-built characters. Right there. I can actually I have this in my hands here to prove the fact that I do in fact own a copy of it. Because when I pull up, say for example, one second, PDF. This, the fact that I actually have a physical copy here, and this terrible OCR copy that I have is in fact legit. But you can see the fact that this game actually has in the middle of it a roster of characters. And they are all level 14, 14, a split 11, 5, 11, 8, 7. Like these are high level characters. So you might be excited. You might be, oh, cool. This is by Mr. Gary Gygax himself. So obviously he wrote D&D. He should know how to do it. This should be a fun time for our friends. And if you try to just do that the first time, you may end up just basically ending up being brutally murdered and not having a good time at all. But again, in this case, but if you run it with cartoon characters, if you run it with characters who don't have basically who basically have you end up mitigating the two, you somewhat mitigate the two problems you have here. You no longer basically the absolute murder dungeon matters a little bit less when your characters, by the rules of the RPG system, get back up in 3 turns, no matter what. Basically, so if they're stuck alone by themselves in 3 turns, they will come back out of it just fine. And so that's a way of making sure everyone gets to play and everyone keeps going, and no matter what you do, you don't particularly care. So you're willing to keep playing and keep trying. The flip side of that, basically how it mitigates the Toon side of things, is it gives your characters a path. It gives them a situation. It gives basically a lot of these. Most of these situations will have a beginning and an end. Basically, the dungeon map that I showed you in there. It gives them a path that the players are going down, and so it gives you a sorry for thumping the desk there. It gives you a straight line, not a straight line, a straight line that they can deviate from, if that makes any sense. It's the idea of the fact that the players can take this and run with it, and you have a straight line that you can guide them back to if you want. So if a character does something wacky, like opens a door to a random place, you know essentially where there should be going. And you can use that to, oh, you open this random door, it happens to lead you to this place. And I won't say back on track because it's a cartoon game. There is no real track. The cartoon ends when the cartoon ends, and that may not be anywhere near the particular end of the dungeon. But to go back to lore link. Oops, that's actually not what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave that there and then close that. Cool. And so that gives me basically the back and forth, the structure to do that, and it lets me run something like this. So if I need to describe a room, I need to put them into a dangerous situation that they need to a dangerous, wacky situation they have to deal with. I have that dangerous, wacky situation already at hand, and I don't necessarily have to improv that on top of the fact that if improving, hey, what happens when a manatee with stretching powers decides to roll down a dungeon corridor full of pit traps. I have to deal with that, but I at least know the fact that it's a dungeon corridor with pit traps. I know what's on the end of it. I know the rooms around it, so I'm presented with lots of different angles and lots of different ways I can deal with it, so that I have options for myself, and I can just pick those up. I can pick from those options as opposed to whole cloth inventing something. It makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more fun for me as a basically as the animator to be able to do that. And plus, a lot of these adventures are just wacky fun, and it's just they're designed like cartoons. Like for example, we were just talking about basically death trap. Yeah, because charging the corner like a train. Yup. The beginning of this two-bit horrors adventure. So let's actually look into it in Lore Link a little. So basically how I break this down into basically in terms of old school. I kind of look at this as an old school type dungeon. You're looking at a map, and basically the first thing you get confronted with when you come into the Tomb of Horrors is the GM literally just tells you you're at a hill, and the hill has 3 different entrances that you can find. Go. And that's the start of the adventure. That is the way the adventure starts. Um, and that would essentially be the start of the clock for the tournament, as it were. Is which one of these 3 entrances do you go down? They're numbered 1, 2, and 3. And 1 and 2 both have doors at the end of them, which are visible. And then 3 is just a long, dark corridor that you can't see anything down. So, and basically, but it turns out if you choose 1, the cave basically it caves in once you get to the. If you try to pull on the doors, the entire corridor caves in, dealing an immense amount of damage to people. Remember those basic characters who I showed you, the example characters? Let's see here. How much hit points do these guys have? Okay, apparently they have you roll your own hit points. Okay, so they don't have default hit points, but considering the most you're getting of basically on hit points is probably like magic users, they're getting a D4 per level. So an average of 2.5, you're looking at 10 levels, you've got 25 hit points. At 14, you have an additional 10, 8, 9, 9. I think, yeah, 9 sounds right. 9 hit points, so that's 34 hit points you're looking at, because maybe you have constitution, maybe you don't, but that initial corridor collapse is let's see here, what is it in here? 5d10, which is 5 to 50 points of damage. Hilariously, this copy of the dungeon, I can't remember if this is probably my father's, as my or my mother's. They are both role players. I shouldn't say they were. Yeah, 5d10. Yes, 5 to 50 points of damage. So that wizard, if the wizard didn't make it out, is likely basically, so on average 5d10 is producing an average of 5.5. So that's about 30 points of damage. So yes, on average you are probably murdering the mage, if the mage gets caught in that. The other characters, like the fighter, might survive. The other character, basically like a cleric, might. The rogue is probably dead. Basically, a bard or a druid is probably also dead. But this is classic, so the only options are cleric, fighter, magic user, and thief. So, yeah, and right there. So, boom, yeah, 34 hit point dyer can just dive in that and get that cave in. Yep, basically the average wizard dies in that cave in. So in terms of how that works, it's less it's less fun. Again, it's supposed to be a tournament. It's supposed to be you were supposed to wizard. You were supposed to be suspicious of everything, and if you were just thinking you can, this adventure was created so that if you attempted to, there's an actual quote. Let me see if I can't pull it up on the in the actual PDF here. Well, again, these are very special modules. Um, where is the? There it is. This is a thinking person's module. If your group is a hack and slay gathering, they will be unhappy. Is the exact phrase that is in this. It is basically in a lot of cases it's better to skip the whole thing and basically then come out and tell them there are a few monsters. Um, it is this writer's belief that brain work is good for all players and they will certainly benefit from playing this module. Again, the urban legend is that Jerry Gygax got told by his player group that they were too powerful and there was nothing he could throw at them that would kill them. And he wrote this module in answer to that. It is certainly believable, but it is not necessarily indicative of the era. That said, basically other modules are less murdery, less trap. Basically, like some of the more fun base modules, like the Sinister Secret Assault Marsh series, which basically leads you through all of those, is basically. Yeah, thank you for introducing a Toon Flight. Yeah, it is less basically. It's less bad. It's more story. It's more plot. The plot in this one literally is just there's a dead guy at the end of this dungeon and there's a bunch of treasure in there. Go get it. Again, it works perfectly for a cartoon. I mean, being greedy people and sending a bunch of greedy cartoon characters basically into a race to get to the bottom of a dungeon, that makes perfect sense. Um, it also gives you a hilarious. Rufus still wants all that silver, by the way. I mean, Rufus could totally have looted all of that stuff from that chapel in the time that everyone else was recovering from being dead. Um, so here's the other secret. Lots more Liberace suits. Here's the other secret. With Toon, you can more easily fit the game to your time scale. Like, for example, I knew that we were starting to run a little bit over on time. We've been playing for about 4 hours or so. And we had only gotten basically, if you can look at this, basically this is the map here. Actually, I don't think, am I capturing cursor? Oh, there we go. There's cursor. So we had skipped this section here. You guys had gone and dealt with this corridor. Got stuck in this little dungeon room over here. And then the game ended in this room here. As you can see, there's a lot of other things in here. And the game actually ends in this room over here. This is actually the final. This is the final throne room, and I believe this is the final. This is the final resting place of the actual Demi Lich. Um, but you can. It's a cartoon. You can add whatever wacky ending you want, and you can end it at any point. So I determined that in our adventure, because we were running late on time, that the skeleton that was here was actually the undead lich who was planning on surprising the party and ambushing them once he came to this evil chapel. Um, and was going to kill them all, but then the eulogizing what was Mike's character? Electric Blanket. How could I forget? The eulogizing electric blanket annoyed him to the point where he just couldn't take it anymore and he storms out of the dungeon, leaving you the victors. There's actually a Sparky the Electric Blanket. There it is. There is actually a false tomb in here that can also serve as is it here? Either here or here. That can also serve as a kind of actual ending. Basically, normally it is basically it is a fake ending where if you pull something out, a fake lich rises and is like, ah, you have to kill me. I am evil, and then you can beat him down really easily, and then there's a bunch of fake gold in it, and you can leave. And all you've got to do is just we did this for one adventure where we were running low on time and they made it to that room. So suddenly that was the actual lich, and then the dungeon collapsed on the way out, and they were successful. Congratulations, you win. You walk home with basically a sense of having beaten it, because in this universe you did that. Basically, you were running the game, and as the animator, you have the choice to do what you want to do in terms of uh, building it out and making decisions in terms of how you want to play it. So, all that to say, how does lore link come into play with something like this? Now, for Toon, the big reason why I would basically use something for Toon is that, like I was showing you earlier, the PDF for this adventure looks like this. It is long. It is multiple pages. It is about 10. It is 10 pages of very relatively small text. And if you remember the map, I can show you too in here. So you can see the map in here. It's a weaving, confusing mess, and sometimes the numbers are in order because it goes 1, 2, 3, then 4. You're like, okay, there's 3, there's 4 there. 5 is down here. There's 6. 7 is over here. 8 is over here. So if your players go directly on the correct path, they go 1, 3, 8, or they just go 3, 8. They skip 1 and 2. Then 10, basically 11. It's 11. Then 10 is in here. 12 is here. 14 is here. 13 is over here. It's a side path. And basically, it's just kind of goes all over the place. And so, and basically, the big thing with Toon is that you want to be snappy. You want to keep things moving. Like, again, the game pushes the players. Basically, one of the things you're supposed to tell the players is act, then think. Don't spend a lot of time metagaming. Don't spend a lot of time worrying about what your action is going to do, whether it's safe or not. Take the action. Go through the wall, fell down the trap, go through the archway, deal with the situation, basically trigger the situation. Normally, there's a lot, you'll get a lot of talking of, okay, guys, we're sitting here in front of the dungeon door. Do we want to go down this corridor or not? All right, let's let the rogue go down and check first. Okay, the rogue feels pretty safe. But I don't know, how much do we trust the rogue? Okay, we don't trust the rogue a lot. Okay, so can we throw something into this room? How about we lead a cow in here? Okay, guys, well, let's go find a nearby farmer's field. We'll bargain with the farmer to buy a cow off of him. Then we will push the cow, basically, we will force the cow down the hallway and then wait and see if the cow gets killed. Meanwhile, the GM's like, oh, okay, cool. I know exactly what this corridor does. And I've had time to look up all of this information. And it's not a surprise to me. They're not going to be like, okay, we're going to come up here, do all that. Then we're going to lead the cow down corridor 3. Wait, what? You just were talking all this time about corridor 1. No, we changed our mind. We're going down corridor 3. Duh. And then it's because you're looking up a bunch of stuff in corridor 3. But Toon, you basically literally, when you set up a situation like this, I can guarantee you there are 3 different things that can happen. 1, the characters all pile into entrance 1 and just slam into the wall, door, whatever, and instantly trigger whatever trap is down there. Again, act, don't think. Option 2, basically 2 characters go down tunnel 1, 2 characters go down tunnel 2, 2 characters go down tunnel 3. Go, deal with that. Oh, okay. And option 3, the characters look at it, count the tunnels, then basically measure a half, then ask if they can measure air crypto. Don't think about activating the trap. Nope. I tried to give them a warning. I tried to include them in with rocks falling from the ceiling, but yeah, some people, again, it's Toon. You give them a little bit of things, and then you just let whatever happen, and that's the fun. And option 3 is they measure a halfway point, basically a point that's equal distance to all 3 entrances, and they start digging from there. And they just keep going until they find something. Up to you where that ends up. So again, so this is 3 different options, all of them equally likely given how NPCs work, that you have to deal with as a animator dealing with this group. And the key here is the fact that, flip back to lore link. You want to be able to react to all 3 with the same speed. You want to be able to, you want to react to, you went down corridor 1, cool, rocks fall, people die. You went down corridor 2, you basically 3 of you go down 3 different corridors. Okay, we're dealing with 1-on-1. You go down the corridor, rocks fall, people die. Okay, next group, you get about halfway down the dungeon. You get about halfway down. You run into a block trap. It drops a block on you. You're stuck. Goodbye. And 3 and 4, the last 2 characters, you went down there, you started walking, it's really dark, you fall into a pit trap. Okay, cool. Moving on. Let's loop back through. How are you dealing with getting out from the rocks? How are you dealing with the blocks? How are you dealing with the pit trap? I know where all 3. I know the fact that all 3 of those are there. If I have a way of getting that information quickly, and that's what lore link is for. And how I would set up dealing with a dungeon dive like this is I'm going to use locations to set up all those locations, and then I'm going to hotspot all of those locations using our new soon to be released hotspot feature, so that I just have to deal with one map and I can just look at that map and click on however I need to. So basically, here's the dungeon map. I've got that loaded in. I've loaded it in as a map on this. If I want to, I can load the location images. I will get to what I would probably use location images for here shortly. So let's start adding some locations. So again, the big thing with a dungeon type situation is you're going to end up starting with a dungeon. You're going to end up starting with an overview of the dungeon. And that overview of the dungeon is going to give you a solid understanding of what the dungeon is like in any particular circumstances. So in this situation, let me actually zoom in on this. Full turn, blah blah blah. A lot of times they will give you basically they're like all pits unless basically let's note it to the contrary throughout the tomb are 10 feet deep and concealed by a counterweight door, which opens as soon as a person steps on it. So I'm going to throw that information in the child notes, the child description here for the main dungeon. That way I know basically no matter where I am, basically no matter where I am what I'm looking at, that note is going to show up. So that whenever I'm looking at something, it's because the dungeon is going to assume the fact that you realize we did an end. Cool. Come back. End. Anti-end. As soon as somebody opens it. There you go. Now I'm saving that. So now basically if I add anything, they're all basically it's all going to be there. Anything else in here, like there's no lights, basically there is throughout the dungeon, unless otherwise noted. So I can save that as well. So that basically all of that will do is a lot of times when you're dealing with a situation with a dungeon, a lot of times you will see it start off with a description of what everything is in a dungeon. This is especially common in more modern modules. Previous modules would do it too. Like this one had it, obviously, as you saw there. I need to actually switch back so you see those notes I created. So this is the child notes description right there. So, hey, welcome back. So all of the notes are copied down, and so I don't have to keep looking for them because a lot of times what those notes are is things like the dungeon walls are solid stone, solid brick, made of mud, dried mud. They are 1 foot thick, 2 foot thick, 6 inches to 2 foot thick. Good morning. Half an inch, basically half an inch thick. They are reinforced concrete, rebar, steel. basically breaching the walls in any room triggers electronic disruption system. If the temperature in any room gets over 50 degrees Celsius, then basically a fire alarm is triggered, etc., etc. All of these things are things which may apply to the dungeon as a whole. Um, and you want to keep track of that in one place and then have it copied down everywhere else so that if you need to add a note, so if you're creating a dungeon, for example, you don't want to have to keep going back and changing it. And if you come back later and you decide, now I just realized that my characters always carries pickaxes and shovels, and if I don't make the walls a certain hardness or a certain thickness, they're just going to go straight through the walls because they're a bunch of just greedy, they're a bunch of greedy miners, and they're just always going, they want to get around any situation, so they'll just go through the walls. So I need to know that. Um, so that's where that's where those child notes can come in handy. So let's quickly add some different locations. There we go. So I could quickly add some locations in here, and I can title these, basically title these by either the names that are given in the PDF. Like for example, the first room is False Entrance Tunnel. So I could technically call it False Entrance Tunnel, or I could call it by the number 1, or I could do a combination. It's up to me how I want to do it. If I put that number in front, it does make it easier for the system, especially if I put a 0 in front of it. It makes it easier for the system to sort it when it's doing sorting by alphabetical order. Because the system doesn't know that false entrance stuff is going to lore link for all of its brilliance that we have programmed into it. It's not going to know that false entrance tunnel is the first entry, and the second thing also titled false entrance tunnel is actually the second false entrance tunnel. You got to tell it that. So otherwise, you keep moving. So you can dump some text in there, which is the text of the description. Dark, full of colors. Things like that. So I can put this. I can have a special section here called out for read aloud, because a lot of times when you're in a location, the first thing you're doing is you're reading a description of that to your players, and so calling that out separately, especially in these older modules, which a lot of time is like newer modules like Pathfinder and Paizo in particular, do an awesome job of making sure that rooms and dungeons have a breakout piece of text, which is, here's what you read to your players to describe this room. This is what they see when they're confronted by it, and then description of the room underneath that, and basically all the things the GM needs to know about the place, um, as opposed to basically old school modules like this one here. It's just one solid block of text, and it's your job as a GM to pull it out. Again, if I'm an animator in Toon, I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to. I don't want to deal with figuring out exactly what's what. I just want to get to the bottom. I just want to get to it, read the description, keep going. Um, which is why Paizo started doing that, and that's why we have it as a breakout section in here as well. It just makes your life a little bit easier. So now that I've added it as a child, false entrance tunnel. As we were talking earlier, those notes are right here. So all pits except otherwise noted. That note is here. I didn't have to do anything other than have it linked as a parent. You can see that that's here. Parent location, dungeon map. Boom, that's already linked. Now we talked about basically we've got a map already, but and I could technically go through and cut out that little section, that little corridor, and put that in here as a map. And if it was a ridiculously detailed room, maybe I would do that. But in most cases, I'm just going to have a map in one place, which is the dungeon map, and leave it there. Now, location image, on the other hand, the big thing that this is going to be useful for is, as you can see in this text right here, it's got this little call out. This area is illustrated by graphic 1. So remember how we said that basically they didn't really give a lot of description stuff in the text? A lot of times they would do something like this. They would have a handout or a graphic that is in the module that is not actually, that basically gives a better physical description than anything they're putting in text. Pictures worth 1,000 words and all of that. 1 second. So, so basically I can have that image, and I already happen to have it loaded into Lorelink, Tomb of Horror. It's Tomb of Horrors. But I've had that one associated with it, and now I can just insert that. I can save this, and now I can pull this up when I'm looking at this in view mode. I've got an easy way of looking at this. It gives me the text title up there. Um, it also has alternate, basically, it also has alternate text already. So if I'm using a screen reader or something like that, it's still easily accessible so I can tell what's in there. But now I have this image here and I can describe this better. Like, oh, it's a pair of double doors. There appears to be a weird kind of face over the center of it. There's a gargoyle face leering out with claws resting on the top of either doors. Hinges are on the outside. The doors seem to open outwards towards you. Cobwebs hang from the ceiling, etc., etc. Um, so I've got that image in there, and I could just stick that in there. And if I add some more, let's just go quickly through and add. Oops, I'm in view mode. While I'm in view mode, I cannot add new stuff. So O2. Same thing. I'm not going to copy and paste all the text in this particular case. I'm just going to create basically a bunch of the locations just so we can mark them on the map and have them easy so we can know what they are. What is 4? I think I screwed up on that one. Didn't I? There we go. Fresco of the Wizardly Workload. That. Let's add 5. Where's 5? The Arch of Mist. AKA the Simon game. 6. The Face of the Great Green Devil. That's a great name, you know? Nothing could possibly go wrong with something called that. This is what we need to change the name. Yeah, that's the giant mouth that has a spear of annihilation in it that basically is just meant to capture players who love sticking their arms into any random hole just to see if there's treasure on the other side. That is literally the point of that, is just there so that if you get a stupid player who's like, oh, it's dark in there and I can't see it. Oh, there must be something cool in there. I'm going to stick my arm in. Or worse, I want to look and see what's inside. It must be magically dark, so there's probably something cool on the other side. I'm going to stick my head in. Well, you know, nobody liked that character anyway. Yep. That is the point. Again, tournament module meant to win. It's meant to win out the week. Well, sure. Basically, they may have heard of a stick, but you know, you use sticks when you see something that might be actually trapped, and you want to actually basically have to deal with it. It's just a hole in the wall. It's just not necessarily a trap. Besides, anything if it was a trap, you could take some damage and deal with it. You're a big tough fighter. You basically you've fought everything so far. Basically, the reason why you assume everything is trapped is a lot because of modules like this. A lot of times, yeah, a lot of times the reason why the reputation that D&D has gotten, or basically now Pathfinder inherited, um, is because of trap fests like this that basically people had to deal with, and people kind of took after that, and then other people basically took modules like this, and then they created other things like the Temple of Elemental Evil, which weren't as bad as this, but were still kind of bad. Oh, I just realized I just gave again. Basically, I believe this probably belonged to one of my parents. It seems likely. I inherited a lot of first edition stuff from them. But there's a lot of like written notes in here which is obviously someone desperate. Basically, either my parents or someone else who played this. Basically, when I got this module from them, desperately attempting to make this module playable, as a, basically for a group of less murder people. Like there are secret doors behind the death traps, so you're not necessarily basically instantly murdered if you get trapped. Um, the the rocks falling. Do I still play with my parents? On occasion, yes. I haven't played with them as much recently, just because all of our schedule, like we both have busy schedules, and they're busy running their own games. My parents, my dad actually runs a lot of like society type games and runs home groups and things like that when he's in Florida. So our basically we need to get together. We haven't played the game in a bit. I need to get together and play another game with the family. We've got young grandkids now. Rather, I don't have grandkids. They have grandkids. My sister has kids. I have nieces and nephews. Um, we need to get this. Some of them will probably get into role playing at some point. It'll be interesting to see when that happens. But that rockfall trip is 5d4 instead of 5d10, so it's just obviously someone desperately attempting to make this module vaguely survivable. In any case, so now I've added 9 of these things just as a start to talk about how I would be, because again, we talked about that this module needs basically as a Toon. I mean, 20 is a lot less than 50. Yeah, it is. Um, no shame on the number 20, of course. Um, but basically, as an animator, I need to uh, set up the situation so that I can quickly 20 is a good number. I can set up the situation so that I can quickly react to where my players are going when they give me the information just at that point. So what we've done with those by setting up all those locations, they're accessible from in here. So if I need to get through here, I can easily pop through, look up which one I need to look up, and head from there. Or if I want to use it from the map, I can instead do things like this. Like, okay, this is location 1. I'm going to add a hotspot to location 1. Boom. There's a hotspot for location 1. There's a hotspot for location 2. There's a hotspot for location 3. And maybe I want to move those up a little bit very closer, so we'll go ahead and adjust those slightly. We'll put them more towards the top there. They lock in on a grid, so the grid sometimes does not necessarily 100% align with what the grid they have in here is, but D&D, first had D&D grids were a thing. All right, there we go. Close enough. So now we have those 3 locations are in there. Basically, I've got location 4 right over here. Location 5 again is oddly here. Even though you might think it's a little, I'll adjust that a bit when I move stuff. There's location 6. There's location 7. And that's location 8. And I believe location 9 is inside of there. So this is the reason why you need to put these things on here, because they are, that's right, location 9 is there. Okay. Now I've added all those in. When you zoom into the map, can you see past the hotspots? Not currently. Basically, right now, basically you can switch into this mode, which gives you view mode. Currently the hotspots cover the map. It sounds like basically you're saying it might be a good idea to make them transparent, or because you have the map also in this form up here, which gives you the raw map. But on the actual map thing, currently the hotspots cover up the screen, as it were. Like the number 7 is completely covered. Yeah, you're right. So basically, adjusting the size of the circles might be a good idea. Uh, And so basically this one you can see like, okay, it's 1, 3. You can hover over them. At least it tells you what it is when you hover over them. But it does cover up the map, so you can't. Basically, it's hard to tell that the 7 is actually underneath that, and so you either might need to move it to the side. Basically, in this mode, currently I would move it to the side. Um, it sounds like a good future, basically a future thing would be either to, oh, is it capturing the numbering? Figures. Basically, you'll have to take my word for it. Basically, OBS is being OBS and is only capturing exactly what I tell it to. And so it's basically as you would a typical alt text pop up, it is telling you the name of the telling us the name of the location, and I'm hovering over. So if I click on one of these, look at that OBS following instructions. Darn you, OBS! How dare you be correct? So if I click on that, it's going to open up and bring me to location 01, the false entrance tunnel. So now I have that information. I can see it right there. I've got access to the image, so I can give that description to the players as soon as I look at it. So a lot of what this does, this makes this situation easier for me to deal with as an animator when I need to quickly deal with a situation and I need to respond to we're going to 7. Okay, 7 is here. And even if I'm using this, even if all I'm doing is I just put this in here and I hotspot this and I get the information in here and I'm still using this as a secondary resource, basically this still helps me because if I'm looking at this and it tells me that I need to look up location 7, because if you go through the basically going through the archway, for example, is a good thing. Basically, if the archway is entered when it is cluttered, the character is doing so will be instantly teleported to 7. And I'm like, okay, where in here is 7? I can quickly just click on, okay, 7 is over here. Click on it, and it takes me to location 7, and I can have the images and other information that I need right there on it, so that I'm not having to fumble around and look at other stuff. I can quickly find 7 on the map and look it up. Or if I want to look up 7 through here, I can pull 7 out of this list just as easily. And I'm just getting location 7 information in here. And if I need to link any additional information off of location 7, I've got all that information. So, for example, if I need to, I could write down the fact that there is a gold statue in here. All right, basically, and so normally, basically, that would be how we would kind of look in here. Basically, it might talk about the golden statue, and then it might tell you that the golden statue is actually and basically, it might say the fact that a um, gold golem. And in here, it might give the stats, or it might tell you to look up the stats in a different book, or something like that. What I can do with this is, oh, I know it's a gold golem. Okay, well, I haven't created a gold golem yet. Let's quickly create a gold golem. This is something that will be changed in a future update. We'll also have an additional button right here that will let you quick create, as well as going up here. But I can create creature and quickly type in gold golem. Looks like a giant Oscar statue. But evil. Basically, then you can have hit points, attack, 3 every 4 rounds. Basically, then of course, if it's an old school dungeon, it's got Thaco. It's got Thaco of like 5, and it's going to murder you. AC of -3. All the fun stuff that old school adventures give you that we don't do anymore. But I've got all of that, so now I've created that item, and now if I want to reference that in here, I just type in creatures, gold golem, boom, I've got a link to it. So I go ahead and save that. So if I basically in view mode, I can see the fact that so if I came here off the map, boom, I've got the description, and now I can just click on this, and that's going to hop me to the gold golem. And if I wanted to open it up in a separate window, I can open it as a new link, and boom, now I can have both up there, but I can still get that information relatively quickly. Again, just streamlining the situation, making it faster, making it basically it doesn't. Yeah, I keep saying basically, and I need to stop that. What it does is it doesn't look like necessarily a lot when you're just dealing with it in short situations like this, but a lot of times a game like especially in today's day and age, basically no shade intended because I am just as bad at this. If things at the table get slow, I can very easily get distracted by something else. It's part of human nature now. We have shiny new devices that provide us constant entertainment if we are willing to basically spend a couple basically willing to give them our attention. Um, and if something goes slower at the table, you're a little bit more likely to pull that out. It happens. No shade intended. It's just the way things have happened, especially some of us who are more um, prone to being distracted easily, whether basically whether through neurodivergence or because we are just get bored easily. There's a long spectrum of types of people. Um, but it's basically as a GM, my job is as an animator especially. My job is to fight that with keeping those seconds down by using something like this to be like, okay, I want to keep engaged with the people at the table because that's what I'm here for. I am not here to read this module. I am not here to just read this as a book to my players and talk. If I wanted to read a book to people, I could sign up for basically a audiobook reader and I could do that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to have a cooperative, fun time, despite what this says about being competitive. I'm here to have a good time with my friends at the table, and because of that, I want to keep everyone engaged. And that means two things. That means I want to be able to focus on people and talk to them and engage with them and when they're dealing with their character, but I don't want to spend all of the time dealing with that person because I've got five other people at the table I need to deal with. So I want my time that I'm spending focusing on person one, especially in a game like Toon where I'm doing a lot of bouncing around and connecting player story to player story to player story to player story, but letting each player get their moment in the spotlight, is I want to maximize the time I'm spending with that player, but basically, but minimize, but keep the average time I'm spending on each player as equal as possible. It's basically sounds a little bit weird, but it's a hard balance. It's a hard balance to do because if you get that really super creative player, like we talked about earlier, they're going to steamroll things unless you put barriers into place. And so here's a GMing tip: when you're dealing with a game like Toon, the system I tend to use to keep everyone involved is you just go around the table and you get an action out of them. I generally kind of time that action around a die roll, maybe two, that they're actually taking in their round. So they're doing something, they're doing something, they're doing something, they're doing something that triggers a skill check. Okay, we resolved that skill check, then I move on. They have done something, they have interacted with the system, they have let random chance in, which failure is, as that's the other part of Toon, is failure is fun. Failure is the thing that's game. Every Bugs Bunny got to do everything he wanted to do first time, got it correct. It'd be a really boring thing. Or this Bugs Bunny tends to get what he wants, but Elmer Fudd doesn't. Um, and even Bugs Bunny doesn't sometimes see. Sometimes something will happen, like he doesn't just instantly banish Elmer Fudd from his existence and tell him to go away, and he never comes back again. Elmer Fudd comes. He does something. It doesn't necessarily drive Elmer Fudd off. Elmer Fudd comes back. Um, and you're wanting to interact. You're wanting failures. That's what that random chance for is in. Fortune is in the Fortune is in. That is what random chance is in Toon for. It is the reason why, and it's something you have to kind of explain to your player. You have to explain to your characters, and it kind of feels a little odd when you're dealing with it. The special powers they get at skill 5 when they're rolling 2d6 to activate them. The average on 2d6, as we all know, is 7. So most of the time, they're going to basically, if you give them a little bit of leeway, 6 or 7 is a passable failure a lot of times. Basically, 5 is a hard, basically, 5, basically below 5, they definitely succeeded. 6 or 7 depends on how hard they were trying to do. And then 8 and above is a failure of some sort. And as an animator, your job is to take that failure and make it into something interesting and then pass it on to the next player. Set up a situation that player one has almost succeeded at what they wanted to do. Now player two can step in and help make that happen, or throw another curveball into the mix and just confuse the situation and make it wackier. Player one creates something, player two realizes that what their player one is creating, basically, player one creates a giant, basically, wants to create a giant ball in order to deal with a situation. So they do, basically, they pull something out of their bag, but they fail to check a little bit. So you rule, okay, you pull out a ball, but it's the color blue. Player two, you turn to player two, who's now, or someone else, basically, player two, you're natural. You told me in your beliefs and goals at the beginning of the session that you hate the color blue. He just pulled out a giant blue ball. What are you going to do with that? And now player one's failure, while basically you've given them a little bit of success, you're letting them going. Now you've introduced a little bit of wacky chaos hijinks, and now player two has to deal with the fact that player one has just done something. And then player three, you turn to player three, and you're like, player one and player two are having this conflict. What are you going to do? Are you going to help player one? Are you going to help player two? Or are you just going to try to resolve the situation in a completely different method? And you basically then you take whatever happens with player three and you roll it to player four, and you keep going in a circle and you try to keep building off of that. People are falling down pits. Other people are trying to help the people who are falling down pits. Okay, what basically what did they do when they fell down? What did they're being loud in this room when they're trying to help with this. This person hates people who are loud in rooms. What are you going to do? Oh no, you realize what's going on. How are you going to react to it? Does your character not care at all and is just going to run off and lick an altar? Perfectly valid. It happens. You just keep going and you keep building off of it and you keep letting it happen. And the goal of Lore Link and setting up this situation with the map, um, it just gives you that little bit of it. Basically gives you a little bit of an edge. It takes one thing off your plate so that you can keep focused in on the players, because measuring on doing all of that isn't easy. I don't succeed all the time. There's a lot of times I look back at a session and I'm like, man, I was really good at making sure everybody got a turn, but I didn't really link the turns together as well. Or I forgot the fact that this character had, I used one of the characters, like, I will be honest, when in the last game we ran, I knew what everyone's beliefs and goals were at the beginning and I tried to pay attention to it, but I didn't wrap that, basically move those in, blend them in as much as I could have to pull characters into a situation to engage, basically to make situations wilder or wackier, or basically make a situation more personal for the next player I come to. And that's what happens, because a lot of times you're fighting with other things. You're fighting with the system. You're looking for something. You're dealing with 16 other things, and you're trying to just keep a lot of. Sometimes you're just dealing with keeping the ball rolling, because sometimes groups are just like, no, we're just going to keep walking into this pit trap, and you're like, oh gosh, how do I get them out of this room? They just keep falling into pit traps. I want to keep them moving forward. How do I keep them moving in a forward direction so they don't get just frustrated and sit in this room forever? Uh, and basically, how do I deal with this one player, basically, who seems to be not having as good of a time? I need to bring them in. I need to focus more, give them more. I want to, do I partner? Basically, sometimes that's partnering them up with another character in the group who basically they don't necessarily have a relationship with at the table, but by making their characters interact, they're forced to deal with situations in a back and forth manner, and then they can build off each other. And you're taking the burden off of them and putting it on yourself to give them that situation, to give them the ability to act, and making it easier for them to act. Um, and so it's fun. It's a lot of chaos. It's a lot of running around and trying to deal with all of that. But the reason why basically lore link from even for improv games like this, which 90% of Toon is just improv. Like I was talking about the game, we had 4 hours and we got to room 14 because wacky chaos happened throughout the front. That's the way it works. I don't know what the straight line is necessarily. This isn't like a this is different from a Pathfinder Society game, which we've done before. Um, where I want to map the path out. I want to know where everything is so that basically things progress in an orderly fashion and I just keep things running smoothly and you go from point A to point B in a smooth manner. This a Toon game, an improv game is all about filing all the edges down so that when I shove this, when we basically turning this into a really, really smooth ball, so that when I shove this off the cliff, it's just going to roll at top speed all the way to the bottom. I don't want any bumps or anything like that. I just want it to go. I want it to go as fast as possible and reach the bottom as possible. I don't particularly care about stopping. Stopping is going to be handled by something else at the bottom. I don't care. Um, and so that's what this situation is all about. So uh, I think I've pretty much covered what I was planning on covering. So basically, talk about basically to reiterate basically. So I talked a lot about Lorelink and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about what Lorelink is doing. As we talked about, we are still adding features to Lorelink. Lorelink is a work in progress. We are currently going through an alpha type situation. We are for a few more weeks. The exact number has not been determined yet. Have open basically open invites to alpha. You can go to our get started page and you can click on the links there and you can sign up for the alpha if you want to try the system out for yourself and give us feedback because much like we were talking about, I was talking about with 20, it's the I look at something. Yeah. Hey, it's good. Yeah. More link interesting. Thank you. It is a basically it is a basically a system. Basically, we're still building it, so it is a lot of times we need information from people coming in, trying it out, giving us their honest opinion, good or bad. And we take that feedback and we're going to be building that into um, beta and basically into future early access type situations where basically so we can develop this as the best product we can make it for DMs for whatever system they're using. Toon, D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu. Um, so if you want to know more about how we basically about using Lorelink, there is basically the getting starting page on lorelink.com. There's also a newsletter which will tell you about all the exciting events that we are doing in the future, um, which is stuff like going to Origins, which I talked about, running games like I was running Printweaver, obviously for Lorelink. I'm not familiar with Printweaver, um, but basically all of those, basically all of those for basically newsletter. You can find out all about all those things. And of course, we're running Twitch channels where we're showing off how we use, how I use Lorelink in particular. We've run Call of Cthulhu, we've run D&D, we've run Pathfinder, Starfinder, various things, Feng Shui, various different systems. If you want to see how basically how uh, how Lorelink works in action, follow this channel here, and you'll see how this system works, and that will give you a basically a good idea of how we use it, how I use it, rather, and basically what systems we use it in, and how it can basically benefit you. If you want to see past things that we've done, we have a YouTube channel. Basically, 20 is basically predicted me on that one and put that into the chat. Thank you. That can show you some of our past runs. Basically, again, all those games I mentioned. We have Vampire the Masquerade. That's the only one I was thinking of. We've run those games, so you can catch those there, and you can see that. And if you want to hear more about the thing I've talked here, if you came in partway through, the VOD will be on this channel for a week, and then it will be available on YouTube less than a week, probably a couple of days if I'm good, because I have to put the subtitles on it. Because one of the things we want to make sure is that we are accessible, and YouTube subtitles are auto-generated subtitles don't understand me very well, so it's usually best if I go through. So it takes a little bit of time before this one gets up there. So give us a couple of days if you want that. Um, outside of that, so follow this channel, follow the YouTube, subscribe for the newsletters, basically sign up for the alpha. And all of those things will keep you in the loop on what we're doing with Link, and you'll be able to basically keep up to date, and we will hopefully see you there. And I think that's all I have for today. So I will go ahead and say goodbye. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Vinsky. Hope you have a good evening.